Hello, Kimera how and you. Kimera how, Mr. Ptofi. Is Misha Ptofi ha Gaelic Agam? Is Misha Ptofi ha Gaelic Agam? Gleva, Mr. Ptofi. Gleva. Hello, Kimera Hashiv and you. Is Misha Joseph and an Alaba Le Ptofi Mochat? Right, let's just go over some of the things that we said there. Okay, so Ptofi was saying, it's Misha Ptofi, I'm Ptofi, and then he said, Ha Gaelic Acum, I speak Gaelic. Ha Gaelic Acum. Now, for those of you who are new to the whole Gaelic thing, Gaelic uses the old-fashioned way of speaking. It says here, Gaelic is at me. Is Gaelic at me? I speak Gaelic. Gaelic is at me. Now, Ptofi, as you could see towards the end of that clip, he's very big. Now, of course, I'd never tell him that because I'm sure he knows much more than I think he does. But if I want to say Ptofi is very big, I start with is. It sounds like a question, but it's not. Is Ptofi very big? That's how you say Ptofi is very big. Ha Ptofi gle vor. Now, if I was just saying Ptofi is big, that would be ha Ptofi more. But after gle, something called lenition kicks in. Like in a lot of languages, they put an H in here. That's how the name Mary can become Vary if you're talking to her. For example, hello, Avari. Hello, Vary. But if you're talking about Mary generally, she keeps her name as Mary. That can be very confusing for Gaelic learners because there is a Gaelic name in English called Vary. Hi, Vary, how you doing? And it never changes because, of course, Gaelic isn't really spoken so much. So here, Ptofi, gle vor. The MH takes a V sound. Now, I was saying a moment ago, if I want to say my cat is big, ha mochat more. Yeah. Now, this is interesting here because, of course, we have the difference between the more and the vor, which is what I was saying a second ago. But this is also very interesting because here I said, ha Gaelic acum. Gaelic is at me. But here, I'm actually using something else. I'm saying my cats. Well, this is quite controversial. As I understand it, we say things are at us when we have things, but if it's people, like your darling, your sweetheart, or your pets, you can use the mo version. But you can see here, again, it's that extra H, which changes the sound of cat into a ch, cat. So you need to be careful with that. You need to be careful with that. Now, that brings us on to what we're going to talk about today, because I have a book I want to introduce you to. And this book is really important because it tells us about minority languages. And it's a very interesting book. And it helps us to understand how minority languages grow and our land. Now, my review of this book is going to be completely in English, okay? But just to finish off with the Gaelic part of this clip, in Gaelic, reading material is stu.
Yevi, stu yevi. And if I add in Agam, it becomes my reading material. I'm not using Mo because it's not applicable here, because it's not something personal. So stu yevi Agam, reading material. It seems more and more young Gaels are using Mo for everything these days, but that's the same as English, I suppose. It's changing. So yeah.
Right, you'll see here this book is called Language Revitalisation and Social Transformation, and it's edited by Hugh Lewis and Wilson McLoud. Now, just to give you some background to this, this book essentially is talking about what works when you're trying to revitalize a language. And it has loads of case studies. I really would recommend you try to get a hold of this. It doesn't go into any great depth about Gaelic specifically. It does talk about Ireland specifically. And the reasons why this came to my attention is because for those of you who know me, you'll know that I'm doing a degree on culture and heritage with Gaelic. And I was asked to do a book review on this in one of my modules. So that's how I came to know about this book. Now, there's lots of interesting things. We're not going to go into it in so much detail, but one of the main things about this book is the fact that it's really putting forward the idea that you need to be revitalizing language at a local level, and that the top-down approach, and that is the government who are introducing schools and schemes, this metrics-driven approach by numbers doesn't always reflect the fragility of language learning on the ground. Okay, so lots of interesting things. Let's just go to the contents page so I can show you a little bit more about it. Right, this is the preface. So these are the contents. You can see here, it begins with an introduction, language revitalization and social transformation, the geography of minority language. They really do talk a lot about community in this, which is great, because they're promoting the idea that language needs to come up, not pushed from the top onto us, because we'll get very bitter. If someone comes to you and says, "That's it, you must be Gaelic today," you can see why a lot of people would be quite upset if they don't even like languages. It goes on to talk about minority languages in the age of networked individualism, communities, networks, and contemporary language revitalization. Strangely, even though it talks about networks and communities, it doesn't really talk so much about technology. It makes references to families talking on Skype and these things, which is a little bit out of date now. It does make reference. I mean, there is one chapter here where it talks about, let me see, I'm sure I saw it there just a moment ago. Yeah, there is something there about technology. It has a chapter which it devotes to this. But again, it doesn't really go into so much depth, and it's a little bit out of date in the way it frames technology anyway, even though this book is quite new. by talking about digital identities. I'm sure I'll come across that just in a second. But there we are, from social networks to digital breathing spaces. Yeah, so it does talk a little bit about it. It's not avoiding the topic, but it's not a main theme. Anyway, the reason why I'm talking about this book is because it's kind of challenging me, and hopefully you as well, to do something more with your Gaelic, and that is not to rely on information being given by the government and saying, oh, the government doesn't make any Gaelic classes near me, so I can't learn, you know? It puts the onus of learning on you to form a community. And that means that channels like this one and people like me have a bigger responsibility in the formation of Gaelic. So for me, when I first started this channel, it was largely something entertaining, which was before COVID came, I think, and then during COVID it kind of expanded. But it's kind of saying, well, we have the responsibility for Gaelic, not the government. So if you really want to see this revived, you really, really need to be looking more around you and what you can produce, and also whether you're willing to participate in that, because otherwise you become a spectator and you say, oh, there's Joseph's video clip, oh look, there's his cat, ha ha ha, oh yeah, Mochat, great, and then you move on. So it takes a bit of an effort to actually participate in the language, and that, I think, is what we're all missing right now. So this makes me think about the future of the channel and how can I participate with you more in your journey instead of just showing you pictures of my cats. You know, that's something that's really food for thought. But let me just finish talking about this book then. It really is a good book. It does show a lot of different things, but for some reason, and I don't know why, it focuses a lot on languages which are not even European. I mean, it talks about China, it talks about Kazakhstan and these things, which is great, but I'm not really sure you can compare them to Gaelic. I mean, really. China, of course, is a very, very socially conservative culture. I'm not sure what works there. I mean, they love their governments over there, don't they? The government says jump and you jump. Our government says jump and we say, no. Why would I want to do that? You're the government. I'm going to ignore you. So that's something else to be considered. You know, the things it mentions in this book aren't always applicable. It does talk a lot about Wales, though, which is really interesting. And there's other really good things about this book as well. It's not the kind of book that's really giving ideas, but it does clearly demonstrate that the way forward for language learning is communities building up the language, not the language being kind of like pulled up by the government, because those metrics and figures aren't even really helpful if you're trying to determine whether you're going to learn a language. So yeah, there's probably a lot about Wales because I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right in Welsh. This guy, Hugh or Howe, he clearly comes from one of the Welsh universities. Wilson and McLoud is from Edinburgh, and it does tell us that he is somewhere, yeah, Aberystwyth. I hope I've said that right, in Edinburgh here in the UK. So yeah, very interesting. Now, I got this book as an ebook from the university. I don't know if it's widely available as an ebook, of course. I'm not able to share with you any of the content that's in it, and I can't post the book because it's copyright, but I'm sure you'll find it somewhere if you have a search, and it's probably on Amazon Book World or eBay for a reduced cost. But a really good book. Yeah, I'd recommend you have a look at it to see where you can go with your learning. Right, that was our book of today. language revitalization. And as I was mentioning, it does put the onus of how you learn onto groups like this, onto channels like this, because of course it's growing out of a community, because I'm based in Scotland, of course. And it's also coming to you wherever you are, which is a kind of a global community. Although looking at the stats on YouTube, I am aware that most of you are around the UK. Correspondence has been coming in from Canada and further away places, which is great. But you all essentially are connected, and that's great. So, how do I open up this YouTube in order to make sure that you're all participating, if that's what you want to do? Well, I haven't really thought much about that, but there is one thing that I want to show you now. Right, that's by going to my website. The address is gaelic.teacherjoseph.com. Now, on this website, there's a few resources. It's nothing heavy, so it's nothing that you need to worry about. But there is one thing here which I think you'll find really interesting, and that is a chart that I made about how you can really move on with your own Gaelic learning by connecting it to creative practices in your life. This isn't anything to do with the book that we've been reading. It's just something that I had been working on, just as my work as a teacher generally. I want to share it with you just to see if there's anything that you can pull out of this that you might find very interesting. So let me just adjust the size of this thing first. Let's see, right. So a Gaelic resonance system. So the idea is that you, first of all, start journaling about your Gaelic identity, who you are as a Gaelic speaker. And that doesn't matter if you only know how to say Cymru Hashiv or Gaelic Agam. That that means you're speaking Gaelic and you're there, the same as everybody else. But you need to start journaling and asking yourself the question about who you are as a Gaelic learner. What's your creative practices? And that's important because Gaelic, the reason why you're learning it, I'm sure in there somewhere, something is regarding creativity. It might be a religious reason. Some people see Scottish people in Gaelic as religious. It could be an alternative path, like a New Age pagan path. It could be trying to connect with your ancestors. And there's, of course, all kinds of rituals people do just for healing and these things in various ways, shapes, and formats. But whatever your thing is, you need to start journaling about that in writing, because it's going to give you the motivation to learn more. And along with that comes affirmations and self-talk, rewriting your limiting beliefs. More practically, there's also other creative things you can do. Language as remembering, storytelling. That's a massive Gaelic thing. Remember, writing in Gaelic is relatively new compared to the past, because, of course, in the old days, Gaels wouldn't have been able to read or write. Attuning to Gaelic sounds as well, shadowing, listening and repeating, even if you understand nothing. This is what kids do. Kids hear and then they say. Gaelic as a living presence as well. That's a really good thing to focus on. How much Gaelic is in your life and how much you can bring it into your life, That could mean treating animals well, taking a walk in nature every day. Unconscious learning through media, the A is missing there. Fluency through resonance, again, just using the shadowing, hearing, and repeating. remember, shadowing, repeating after someone, is a form of chanting. So if you are into the alternative sides of Gaelic, you might find that very interesting, and it might boost your motivation. Identity and embodiment thinking in Gaelic for a little bit every day. I mean, this channel gives you enough Gaelic to do that. Role play, everyday integration. You can do that online. And there's loads of Gaelic speakers. There's WhatsApp groups everywhere. And there's creating a Gaelic persona for yourself, as we said earlier. I mean, I think the problem is when it comes to learning that there's a real huge vacuum. There's the dominant language, which supposedly is eating away at Gaelic. That's the way it's given to us. And even now, we don't, we can't use Gaelic in these segments because you're not going to understand everything. So we need to find a way of bringing Gaelic forward in our consciousness before the dominant neighbor of English steps in and completely wipes the whole thing out. Wherever you go, you're going to be surrounded by English. So it's about making that space for Gaelic in your life. So if you want a copy of this, do go to my website. You can see it there. My website, I'll just give it to you again. Right, so the website should be just appearing somewhere above me here. I'm not sure where. Yeah, there it is. And it's as you can see there, gaelic.teacherjoseph.com. So do have a look, please, and see if there's anything in that resonates with you. There's also a few grammar guides there. Nothing heavy, okay, really short things. So have a look around. All right, that's it from me for today. Chiri and Razda.